Hey there! In this short video I would like to show you a very easy way how to do localization for your game without any third-party assets. I'm going to use Unity 2019.3, but any earlier version will work as well. There are two components required: properties files, which will hold all in-game text, and language resolver script that will fill in the required text. In this tutorial I will use two languages, English and Russian. This approach is easily extendable for all other supported languages in Unity. You can see here I have already pre-created a scene. The scene will have just two text components here, and those are the components that we're gonna fill with the text later. Let's start with the properties. I have already pre-created them here in Resources folder. There are two files, English and Russian. English version looks like this, just two lines, and the Russian looks like this. If you can't read Cyrillic, don't worry, it is just a direct translation of this English version. Each properties file will fulfill the following contract. One line will consist of two parts: the key on the left and the value on the right, with the separator in the middle. All lines are separated by a new line, so each single line represents one entry. All property files will have the same keys, but different values. The file name corresponds to Unity System Language enum. The separator sign between key and value can be any other sign as well. Now let's go ahead and create a script that will read those files. Okay, let's create language resolver script. Go to Scripts, Create C# script. Let's call it lang resolver. We don't need update here, and we will use awake instead of start, because the script should run before any start is called. If you remember, we have key and value pair here, so the best structure for this would be dictionary that will call string key and string value. Let's call it lang new dictionary. And since it will not be changed, we can also make it read-only. Another field that we want to keep is the system language. Let's have a field for this as well. Now let's create a method that will read the files from resource folder and fill the dictionary up there. Let's call it read properties. First of all, let's resolve the system language. Application system language. This is the enum with all supported languages in Unity. Next, let's read the language file. For this, we will use the resources load method, and we will load text asset. Let's call it file. We will load it in accordance to the system language field, which name corresponds to the file name. Let's first check that the file exists, because if it doesn't exist, then the system language is not supported by your localization, and you should better default it to, let's say, English in this case. And then the file will be resources load text asset with English here. Now let's part the content of the file. For this, we will take the text from the file and split it by the new line. The result will be the array of lines here. And now we would need to split this line with our separator. In this case it's an equal sign. And the last thing is to add the key, which would be the first element in the array, and the value, which would be the second element in the array. Let's call this method from awake. Another important point here, we should not destroy this game object because it is meant to be loaded only once on your game startup. And now, in order to check that everything works, let's print out the first key and first value of this dictionary. Now let's go back to Unity, create a new empty object here, attach lang resolver to this object, and let's rename it also to lang resolver. Save and run. As you can see, the first key and the first value are outprinted. That means that our script worked the way we expected. The last step is to bind keys from properties to the text components on the thing. For this purpose, let's create another script. Let's call it lang text. This script will have nothing but one public string identifier field. Now let's attach it to our text components here. An identifier will represent the keys from the property files. For welcome we will use welcome, and for long text we will use long text. Those values are taken from the keys from the properties, the same values. And the last step, we should fill the actual values into the text, right? So for this, let's create another method in lang resolver. Let's call it resolve text. This method will find all objects of type len text, say of text, and for each of them we will take the text component text, and let's add the text from the dictionary we filled before. Lang text identifier. One important note is that we should use regex from system If you remember, we have a new line, special character in properties, and we should unescape them in order for Unity to pick it up and display as the new line. And now let's create yet another script. Let's call it UI resolver. Let's create an empty game object for this. UI resolver. It is basically just the imitation of a real game where you will definitely have some kind of UI resolver that will handle all UI related components. For now, let's just simplify an object of type lang resolver and call resolve text method there. Switch back to Unity, press play, and you see that the text is still there, still English. That's a good start. Now let's try to simulate the other language that we have. I will not change the language of my system because it would just take some time. Instead, I will just use Russian here. And now I'll switch back to Unity, press play, and now you can see Russian text here. That would be it for today. Thank you for watching. See you next time.